fall into
high
the
chair or booster seat. Sorry. Yeah.
Well, Mayor, congratulations.
Thank you.
You've hit the ground running.
We have. It's a good time.
Well, there's no doubt that the city is on the rise, as Amanda said, and it's exciting to see you take over, right? I think there's a massive amount of opportunity here for the city, and maybe we start by talking about, what are your priorities? What are the things that you're focused on? What are the things that your administration wants to accomplish?
Yeah, so whoa, we're getting a mic check. I know I'm loud, but I don't think I'm that loud. I think there's a lot. I think being in this room, you can sense the vibe that Pittsburgh is on the move and on the rise. But I think, looking at it from a small, and then we'll go to a larger perspective. For us, it's about families in Pittsburgh first, and that details matter. So I have a 4-year-old and a 2-year-old. So how do we get more people to live in Pittsburgh, expand their families, stay in Pittsburgh? We have the talent, and the talent's right here in this room. You're collecting talent from Pitt and CMU and other universities here. So we have the talent to compete with anybody. Now it's our job to sell Pittsburgh to future residents, to current residents. When it comes to speeding up permits, that's one that I got for many, many years. So those are some of that's kind of big picture, and we can get into details, I'm sure. But those are the things that show that Pittsburgh is open for business, but not only open for business, but we're open for ideas and new residents to come here with their ideas. And I think that's why it's a very exciting time to be the mayor of our city.
That's awesome. I know you made some announcements recently to try to have some very concrete actions, right, to continue to move permitting and make it easier and more predictable for companies to come in and invest here in Pittsburgh. Aurora, who I work for, we have almost 1,000 employees here. And when I moved up to Pittsburgh almost 7 years ago, all I heard was Eds and Meds, right? And that's the history of this community. But I think it's certainly changing with more and more tech companies, with the AI work that's happening here at Bakery Square and a lot of those announcements. How do you see the city changing in that regard and the new investments that are being made, specifically when it comes to technology?
Yeah, so obviously permits are one where if you can get a permit in New York City in 4.5 weeks, how does it take 8 months to get one in Pittsburgh? It shouldn't. And streamlining those processes, and it's not for big developers. Look, they have 4 or 5 lawyers that can figure out the system. It's for a small startup. It's for a coffee shop. It's for a yoga studio, that it's a young entrepreneur who's trying their best and can't funnel through our system, and they're losing overhead. Every coffee shop that opens creates 3 or 4 other jobs. So that's why, permitting was so important for us to streamline and have somebody that you can call in these offices to walk you through that process. And when you are coming through with a big development, and we have a new developer coming in from Boston. I don't know if anybody's been to the Seaport District, but the individuals that built that are actually going to do Station Square. So you sit at a round table and you walk somebody who's new to Pittsburgh through our process so that you don't have to sit down and have 20 meetings after the fact. Everybody knows up front what they have to do. So I think that's really important. When it comes to AI and technology, almost every article I read, Pittsburgh is in the top 5, the top 10. So now we're competing on a worldwide level. Now it's our job to sell why a company should stay here and expand. Everybody looks to Texas or California or somewhere else to go, but all those amenities are right here. And we're more than just, AI and technology. Look at the arts, the culture, the foodies that we have in Pittsburgh. We have all that you expect in a major city. We just have to tell that story. And with the draft coming in a couple weeks, and I say this every time, the first commercial that cuts, we all in this room will predict it. The networks are going to show, Terry Bradshaw and, Franco and Lynn Swan, and that's great. I'm a Steelers season ticket holder. I love that. But they're also going to show steel mills. And it's like, no, that's not Pittsburgh anymore. So our job is to sell what we are today and where we want to be in 10 years.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. One of the things that I know you've been very proactive on and I've read about is, you're cold calling CEOs, and, you and I have talked about how you're willing to go to the airport and pick up a CEO that's coming to invest and drive through the tunnel, which I still continue to think is probably one of the most spectacular unveilings of any city in the country. What's the feedback? Like, what are you hearing from CEOs when you make those phone calls, and how are they responding?
Yeah, so I mean, obviously we're doing 10 to 20 calls a week, and it's local and national. There are some people that are either Pitt alum, CMU alum that have left, and we're calling them to say, why did you leave? Because we also want to learn from this experience to say, how can we get you back? Yesterday I had a call with a medical company in West Virginia. They have 300 employees, but they work with UPMC and Highmark. So how do we get you to have a satellite office? It's those small calls that actually really help. And we're not just doing CEOs and companies, we're doing small startups and restaurants. I will say, if you're in this room and you get a call from me, it is actually me. It's not AI. I had called a restaurant. I tell this joke every time, so my staffer in the back probably hates it. But I called local restaurants. The one restaurant I called, I said, look, I just want to talk to the manager and the owner to say, thank you for opening in Pittsburgh. And the lady on the other line was like, that's great. What is your order and when are you picking it up? And I said, that's not why I'm calling. But I do have an Italian hoagie that's been sitting at this place for like 4 weeks now. But I think it's those things that we can do in Pittsburgh that most cities can't. You're not going to have the mayor of New York, Chicago, Miami, wherever, going to be able to make those calls. And I think in order to grow, and I said this once and I really like it, is we just have to be Pittsburghers. Like everybody, when you get here, we're friendly, we're welcoming. Let's just be Pittsburgh and we'll grow, by ourselves. But a lot of people haven't sold it that way in a long time. And I also think I want to give a shout out to Mary McKinney is here. We finally split up economic development and redevelopment. The city's never had an economic development team. It's always been through the URA or, a developer who's come to the city to build buildings and reshape the buildings. But how are you going to fill the buildings if you don't have companies? So Mary is doing a great job with smaller companies. Steve Ray is coming from CMU in that tech AI world, and they're the ones that are setting up these calls. But that's a new strategy that no mayor's ever had, and you'd shake your head at why not? Like, we have the ability to do that in Pittsburgh, and we never did it.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like for years, right, we've missed opportunities. Like we hear, Columbus is getting this, or Cleveland, or, you mentioned West Virginia. Yeah. And sometimes we just didn't even have a seat at the table, right? And so I know that that's been a huge priority for you, as an outsider moving to Pittsburgh. I remember coming here and everybody was like, oh, you're moving to the Northeast. And, as a Texan, I'm like, I don't know if that's a good thing. But, come to find out, come here, like this is a community that has the resources of every major city across the Northeast, New York, Boston, you name it, like the trails, the foundations, right, which are transformational, parks, foodies, like the restaurant scene is continuing to grow. And yet we have this Midwestern personality, right, that is what, when you say, like, we just need to be Pittsburghers, right, like there's a very unique side of it. One of the things I've heard you say is you want Pittsburgh to be somebody's first choice, right? How do you accomplish that? Like, what are the things? Talk a little bit more about what does that mean to you, and how do we compete against other cities?
Yeah, I mean, I think especially when it comes to families, there's no reason why families should be leaving the city. So we have to do a better job of selling that. And obviously at schools, that's a longer conversation. But also, not only education, but we have opportunities in spaces that we control as the city. We have rec centers that sit vacant on a Tuesday night from 6 to 8. Why do we not have a tech firm come down and bring a robot and show a kid how to do this and create generational minds in Pittsburgh that maybe they haven't had those opportunities before. So utilizing our space so that parents don't drive to the North Hills or the South Hills to see an artist, to see a show. You can do it right in your own neighborhood. So we've reached out to a lot of nonprofits, foundations, the zoo, the symphony, come to one of our rec centers on a weeknight and perform. And guess what? If 5 kids shows up, those are 5 kids that may have never experienced that before. And it's those small things that we are asking because we've never asked that question before. And it's not that hard to do. The universities, Pitt, they could bring basketball players, volleyball players, like show the kids a different perspective. We just had an announcement the other day. I'm going to give a plug to Central Catholic because I'm an alumni. But Damar Hamlin came back and offered 10 kids scholarships. and then another 5 for the building trades. Because we know, look, not everybody's going to college.
Yep.
So how do we take what's coming in this room and the AI and the manufacturing that's coming that actually creates more opportunities in Pittsburgh? So I think by getting a company to land first, you provide opportunities for their employees, but then you provide opportunities for our residents that haven't seen it before.
Sure. No, from what I understand, the audience is some local Pittsburghers, some from the outside, right? Some folks that are visiting Pittsburgh, maybe some for the first time. One of the things that I've learned about Pittsburgh, and in fact, it's funny you mentioned Central. I've always heard about the Central Mafia, right? Like you have to figure out how do you break into that.
We can't talk about that publicly. Yeah.
But one of the ways that Pittsburgh was described to me is Pittsburgh is a backyard barbecue kind of town, right? Like you have to tap into those networks that exist and people like to host and extremely welcoming. They're not being exclusive. It's just sometimes you don't know what those things are, right? So for somebody coming in from the outside, somebody that's not, fourth, fifth generation Pittsburgher, knows, all of these different institutions, what advice do you have to folks on how to get connected, how to get involved, how to become ingrained in the community?
Well, I think obviously events like this are very helpful, and there are a lot of these events. And I think there are a lot of opportunities that, look, I will say government doesn't promote a lot of the things that we do, and shame on us. We have small business fairs, we have activities, we have events that we have to do a better job of letting residents know what's out there, especially younger people that are just coming here for the first time. And, they go down the street and they get used to the local bar, but wait, there's 50 other places to go. So we have to do a better job internally on presenting what we all have to offer. There's a lot of, besides arts and culture and food, recreation, outdoor recreation. You drive an hour, you're in the Laurel Highlands. Sure. There's a lot of activity that we can get you to. And not only that, with the draft coming up, we are in a market that is close to 11 NFL teams. And either it's a 3.5 hour drive, 3.5 to 4 hour drive, or an hour flight to 11 markets. And that's the New York, Chicago's, Detroit, Washington, Baltimore's not invited. But other than that, those are industries that are that close to Pittsburgh. And you turn your head and say, wait, why are you in D.C. this weekend? Come to Pittsburgh. It's easier to get around. And again, I say this all the time. We are so prone to be, in our heads that Pittsburgh's not a walkable city. It actually is. I could take this whole room and we could walk all of downtown. I could show you every project we're working on within 35, 40 minutes. And it's just trying to change that mindset in Pittsburgh. It's going to be hard, but the more we talk about, hey, if you're in the Strip, you could walk to PNC Park in 15 minutes. No other city offers you that. And everybody in this room, I will guarantee, if you've been to New York City, you're going to walk 15 blocks and you're not even going to think about it. In Pittsburgh, I can't get you to do that. So we have to do a better job of preaching that Pittsburgh is a walkable community.
Yeah, I'd never heard the statistic about us being close to 11 NFL markets, right? But the crazy thing to me is, I love history, right? Pittsburgh is the room where it happened. Right, you go back, a couple hundred years, and literally the country was being divided up in some of the very buildings that we have downtown, and the railroads and the infrastructure of the country. So in many ways, the design of why Pittsburgh is where it is as compared to all of these other major cities is because this is where the country was being built, right? So that is something that's very intentional. But you mentioned the NFL draft. Right, I think there's a lot of excitement here. I think we're going to hear from Cynthia here in a little bit about what this means from an AI perspective and a data analytics perspective. But 500 to 700,000 people, are going to be coming to the city in now less than 30 days. It's a pretty incredible moment to showcase what this community means, and it's been, the work of many years to get to where we are today. Tell us from your perspective, what does this mean for the city? What do you hope to get out of it?
Yeah, I think it's a lot of what we've kind of already said, but if somebody hasn't been here, as soon as they hit that tunnel, you said it, they're going to be shocked. Yeah. They're not going to expect what we have to offer that we see every single day. But I think that week is huge for all of us, and I hope everybody in this room is an ambassador to Pittsburgh that week. There's only so many events I can go to. But I talked to college students last night. You have to be the ones that are preaching about why you're in Pittsburgh. So everybody in this room, it's a call to action that when you see somebody from Denver or San Diego say, hey, I'm in Pittsburgh because of these 3 things. And I think the more we can do that, we're going to be popping into stores and restaurants and bars the whole week just to talk about Pittsburgh. But I encourage a lot of you in this room to tell that story as well. And we know that there's going to be a lot of AI summits and other things going on, not just the draft that week, but telling why you're in Pittsburgh is going to be very helpful. Because a lot of people say, well, what am I going to do in Pittsburgh? It's like, why are you not in Pittsburgh? Sure. That's kind of the momentum that we have to sell that week to not only everybody coming here, but then on national TV when we do interviews, it's got to be about what we are now and where we're going.
Yeah. Yeah. A lot of folks I think in the room are within the tech industry, right? Tech leaders. I have now spent the last almost 15 years working in the tech industry. And tech and government have always had a very interesting relationship, right? When I started 15 years ago, and for context, I run government affairs. That's been my career in tech. Tech was very hesitant to work with government, and very, even many of our employees, right? Like they don't necessarily engage with government or politically, for that matter. My advice has always been internally within the companies I've worked for is, you want to engage with government before they engage with you, right? The last thing you want is to have a government agency or an elected official come to your office and say, hey, what's going on or what's happening? And you want to proactively go and reach out to government and build that relationship. What advice do you have for companies that either already do work with government or maybe should be working with government, have ideas on how to work with government? What's the best way for them to engage at the local level? And you've been in politics for a long time, right? Like not even just the local level, but just how should they think about engaging with government?
Yeah, I think it's, as you said, it's not the big scary person in the room. It actually can be beneficial. So I'll just use downtown for a quick example. We are getting aggressive at the URA to purchase properties downtown. The reason being, we've had so many slum landlords or people that have sat on these buildings and, there's nothing going on, nothing happening. But if government could get control of some of those sites, now all of a sudden there's a startup that needs 30,000 square feet. Hey, we can plug you into this building right downtown. So we are good partners. It's just, as you said, come up front. Let us know what the ask is. Is there a grant? Maybe. If not, Pittsburgh's so small, we can set you up with, well, this company's doing this, or this foundation has a program that might be able to help you, bridge those gaps. So I think there's a lot of opportunity. There's also a lot of space in Pittsburgh. Obviously, this is a crown jewel in Bakery Square. Everybody's kind of in this incubator, but there's also space downtown. There's space in Oakland. It's not that far away. Hazelwood Green is another huge benefit. And that doesn't happen without government. When I was on council, that was a vacant, abandoned steel mill site. And we put in $80 million of tax revenue to that site to put in roads, bridges, infrastructure. All of that going into Hazelwood Green now has opened that site up to be $1 billion investment. So there's a lot of projects that we can do that can benefit everybody in this room, especially in new companies that want to start up. When you're talking about not only relocating or locating in Pittsburgh to start, we have the space, but then we can also build housing around you. Like there's a way to do this where everybody's partnered together, and government can only benefit residents. And I think, as you said, people shouldn't be scared. Ask. That's also why we're making the calls. What do you need from us? Sure. I never thought that, a storefront, you call and say, hey, I can give you a $10,000 grant from the URA to renovate your storefront and put up a new sign. Well, it's $10,000 that you don't have to spend. You can put back into your inventory, and it's something that betters the entire Main Street. But nobody thinks about that.
Yeah, it's funny, right? I think the tech industry just doesn't think along those lines, the way that other industries who maybe are more heavily regulated or more used to engaging with government. But I think that is one of those huge opportunities, and even from an ideas perspective, like, do you all have tools, right, that government could benefit them to make government more efficient as well? Like, be thinking about ways that you can do that. But you mentioned Hazelwood. That's an incredible story, right? Like what started from government, and you look at what the foundations have done, and now Pitt and CMU, you're not exaggerating. It's literally $1 billion that's being invested there over the next, 5 years? Like, it's not that long.
Yeah,
it's coming very quickly. Housing is coming up in the community. I mean, there's some incredible things. I think isn't there a ribbon cutting coming up for the
There is, yeah, the NFL draft. There's going to be a new football field going on down there.
Yeah,
so
I mean, that's incredible.
Big. Yeah. We won't say what high school team's playing there, but might be right down the street, and I might be part of that. But yeah, no, so Hazelwood was a prime example, and I'll tell a quick story because I know we have a little bit extended time. The best sticky note I've ever gotten from one of my staffers, Judy Yates, I'd hired her when I first got to council, and I got a call from at then the Mayor Ravenstall's office, and it was Yaron Zober, who now works for me, and it said, Yaron Zober, and the note was F you. I'm like, what? And she said, no, for you. I said, oh, well, you can't write F you on the note. That's not how it works. So I called him back, and he said, hey, we're about to introduce the $80 million TIF in Hazelwood. So that's why I will never forget that sticky note, because the call landed the $80 million that actually built Hazelwood Green. But the whole process there was, we don't want you to just be on Hazelwood Green. The heart of Hazelwood is actually 2nd Avenue. So if you've ever been, it's fish fry season, so I'll make a plug for Community Kitchen right on 2nd Avenue. We renovated that building. We brought, I never forget this bothered me the most. For years, there was a library, and it was above a beer distributor. Like, what kind of sense is that? It doesn't make any sense. So we moved the library to a new facility. We opened up Le Gourmandine right on 2nd Avenue, because you can't have that barrier. And a lot of people didn't realize, but Hazelwood is actually a riverfront community. You just had an old steel mill site that was blocking it. So now we've made that connection to the neighborhood to be involved in the site, but also people that are on that site, we want you shopping and eating in our community and building housing that's affordable for Hazelwood residents. So that's one that, we'll look back in 10 years from now, you'll see it flourishing even more than it is right now.
That's awesome.
No.
In your role as mayor, you get invited to different events, you get access to different conversations. What are the amazing things that are happening here, maybe better than anybody else. Do you have any that come to mind, or what's a visit that you've done, or a tour that you've done, or a conversation you had? It's like, man, it's amazing that this work is happening here. And I'll give you time to think about it, because I know I'm springing it on you. I was having a conversation this was a couple of years ago with the president of CMU, and we asked him a similar question. And I said, what's next? What are we going to solve? And he said that between the life sciences work that happens at Pitt and the AI and machine learning work that's happening at CMU, we're learning so much about the brain and the process, and that he believes that we're going to be able to cure blindness, right? Yeah. Because of the partnerships that's happening between those two, because you can apply some of those lessons on machine learning and AI to what we're studying on the brain at Pitt. And that's the kind of stuff that could actually happen at Hazelwood, right? When these institutions start to have that proximity with each other. Anything that comes to mind in your?
Yeah, actually, the science exhibit, or the science space, I can't remember the name of it, but Pitt on Technology Drive, doing that tour and not even realizing that that's there. I mean, I know that it was there, but actually to tour and see what they're bringing back from space that's going to help, as you said, with, life sciences in the future. It's amazing that somebody even thinks about that. And seeing, the NASA astronaut that went up to space for, 400 plus days, and bringing back all of this new stuff that we can use in technology is so unique and so different. Best event I've been to? There are a lot. My couch is probably my favorite. No, I think there's a lot of unique things that go on, and every day is different. And somebody said, what are you surprised about the job? I think I'm surprised to hear different stories everywhere of people working on things that, again, the general public might not know about.
Sure.
And I think those connections are very helpful, because it helps us now shape a message that we can talk about in the Pittsburgh, but not only in Pittsburgh, but on a worldwide scale, that I know these companies are here, but most people don't. So I think that's beneficial to being everywhere and going to as many events as possible, just to hear and gather information. And I hate sitting behind my desk because you don't learn anything new there. Obviously, people come in and have meetings there, but the reality is you learn more by walking around and finding out what this company does or that company does. And, building those connections is very helpful. I would say the best event I've been to, I did the Polar Plunge.
Oh, yeah.
And I stood there, and my wife's looking at me, and people are egging me on. I'm like, no, I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to do it. And then DVE, Randy Bauman, gave me the mic to do an intro. And I was like, oh, okay, I'll just go for it. So I jumped in, shoes, everything. It was very cold, but it was definitely worth it. And they said no mayor's ever jumped in. I'm like, no, because they're smarter than I am. But I think just being part of the community and doing those types of things. I think it's fun. I think, being at roughly a younger age, 41, you should be able to do those things. And you want to do those things. Because a lot of these things that we go to are supporting charities that benefit so many people. So I think there's a lot of fun events that we go to. That one sticks out right now. Tomorrow night I have a good one. I get to introduce Dr. Stanley Marks. If anybody knows Stan, I get to introduce him. The draft is obviously going to be something a little creative.
Yeah.
We'll leave it at that. It'll be busy.
Well, kudos to your social media team, because if you don't follow the mayor, I'd encourage you to follow the mayor, because I think you are everywhere and you're doing events all day, every day. And, I think you've mentioned a couple different times the role of family, right? Like, I remember at your inauguration, one of the things we talked about with some of the folks that were there is it's been a long time since we've had a mayor with young children. Right. I know your son had a good time with the governor. And
so actually it's funny. So I said, I'm going to talk today at an event, and then I'm going to be on the radio. I said, what should I say on KDK radio? And he said, you talk about the governor. I was like, well, Josh doesn't need my promotion, but he's doing a very good job. But my son remembers sitting next to him, drawing in his notebook all day long. And then I actually said to the governor after, I said, how did you not get any of the Pirates booty on your suit? But it was covering me. And he was like, oh, I've been a dad before. I know what I'm doing. I was like, okay, good.
Yeah, I don't know who was eating out of whose hand.
I don't know who was eating, but I ended up all on my suit. But I think having a 4-year-old and a 2-year-old gives you a different perspective. I mean, my wife is really big on early childhood education, literacy, the Homeless Children's Fund. So she's pulling a lot of that stuff together, which is very helpful. But also, a lot of people, as we mentioned, you don't know what's available in Pittsburgh. You have the Heinz History Museum. Again, 3rd year, voted #1. Children's Museum, voted #1 this year. There's a lot of those things that we should be providing to parents when they, are at McGee Hospital and they just gave birth. Why is there not a packet to say, hey, here are all these great things you could do for kids under 2 in Pittsburgh? And just, enlighten everybody about the opportunities that are in our city. So projects like that go a long way. But I think 4-year-old and a 2-year-old, you see how important education is. And I think that's a longer conversation that we have to have. Creating a better partnership with the schools is something that we're definitely working on. And also a 4-year-old and a 2-year-old, they see things that we don't, and they tell you what's ever on their mind.
There's no filter.
There's no filter. So I think it's a fun time to have little kids, and I believe they like going to events. We're going to a Pirate game. I have to throw out the first pitch. I believe it's April 4th.
Opening day, right?
The next day.
Okay.
They won't let me do the first day, but that's okay. That's okay. They actually asked me to be a reliever, so we know it's down on the totem pole. But my son, all he talked about was the Pirate Parrot, and then we showed up to a Pirate game last year, terrified. And he said, I want to go home. I want to go to bed right now. I was like, okay, all right, we're leaving. And I felt bad. Like, the parents, like, what am I supposed to do? I'm like, look, I'm sure you get that often. We'll leave. But I did. I'm very optimistic. So I played baseball for a very long time. So I've already booked. This is how optimistic I am. October 28th, we have closed the Boulevard of the Allies and Grant Street for a World Series parade. So I'm, might be crazy.
You are really bold.
Yeah, I'm very bold. We're going all in. We can ask who's the speaker, Cynthia Freeland, if the data is correct.
What are the
we
analytics?
Have a chance this year. But I think baseball season, it's amazing though. Like there's a vibe about even the Pirates because baseball season's right around the corner, and we know we have an uphill battle there, but there's a lot of great things like Pirate games again on a Wednesday night. It's the best ballpark in the world.
I agree.
Like those little things help us to sell Pittsburgh.
Yeah, there's no doubt. But again, coming back to your perspective, right? Like having a mayor that has young children, that sees those things, that have the kids give you that feedback, it's why you have these ideas, right? Like the work, with Little League Baseball in the 14th Ward, right? Like those things that is what makes this city so much more vibrant for young families, that allows us to make Pittsburgh our first choice. Right, that is a really
and taking young kids, we go to a lot of playgrounds and we try to take walks in business districts. So when you're walking slowly with a 4-year-old and a 2-year-old, you pick up that why is that sign faded? Throw it away, get it down. Why is this slide not painted? Like it's the small details that we've forgotten about for a very long time. So we are right now doing. This is our third blitz, so obviously it's building up to the draft. But we did demo blitz in the South Hills, demoing dilapidated buildings that have been there for way too long, don't need to be there. Abandoned cars, we're doing that this week. Getting a couple hundred cars off of our streets that some have sat there for 2 years in a vacant lot. Like that, those are the details that you want your city to take care of. And it builds pride back in your city that they are caring about the details of things and, potholes and various things like that. And I know there are potholes. Don't raise your hand. I get it. But I think those small things go a long way in showing that, look, government does take care of your street. This is the stuff that matters. Your main street matters because that's where you all see it. It's front facing. And that's more that we can do a little bit differently. But we get to see it with young kids, which is helpful.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the biggest powers that government, and in particular the mayor's office, has is the power to convene, right? And to bring partnerships to the table. And I think your administration has really hit the ground running by bringing corporations that haven't historically been as engaged, right, to make some really significant contributions to help improve the city, right? Like, and even, I think just last week you announced Heinz endowments for the neighborhood plan, right? Like you're bringing all of these institutions that's allowing you to go do some of the things that maybe previous administrations were not able to.
I think that's also coming with specific asks. I think for far too long, government says we have a $40 million hole. Hey, Heinz Foundation, can you fill $40 million? It's like, no, nobody's going to benefit from that. But now we have a comprehensive neighborhood plan that was $6 million, and now, it's down to the last couple million, but Heinz stepped up to take that burden off the taxpayers. Now we've saved about $1.5 million from them stepping up to pay for the remainder of that. UPMC, PNC called during the blizzard and basically said, PNC called and said, I want this money. I'll give you $2 million. It has to go directly to plow trucks. Okay, that's fine. That $2 million now turned into 35 plow trucks. And it's just being specific with an ask. UPMC, same thing, gifted us $10 million because it was within their mission. Like, ask them something that's within their mission that they can go to their board and say, here's $10 million now for ambulances because it's going to save lives and get people to our hospitals in a safer manner. So it's being specific with the asks. And we've never done that. It's always government, give us money, we'll fill our coffers. That doesn't benefit, first of all, the organizations that want to donate, but it also doesn't benefit anybody in this room. If I took $40 million and put it into my coffers, it didn't fix that pothole, it didn't, fix a playground, that's not what it should be. That money, if we can get a large scale 4 or 5 year community benefit agreement, it has to go directly into the communities because that's where it's supposed to go. So, does it leave me a burden of still having a gap in debt? Yeah, obviously. But there's ways that, that money should be beneficial to everyone, not just, city coffers. And I think being specific on ask, and I know I mentioned baseball, but we've been asked for the Pirates and the Steelers as well. Why do I go to my playgrounds and my scoreboards don't work, but I go to Fox Chapel and they have brand new scoreboards. That's not fair. So how can we bridge that gap and help, getting some of those resources back into our neighborhoods? So those are some questions that we're going to obviously ask and hope that, those partnerships come together.
Especially if we win the World Series.
Especially if we win the World Series. And I called it, just so everybody knows. But also, the Penguins, and I moonlight as the GM, in case you didn't know that.
We've seen pictures.
Yeah. So, but again, they build, deck hockeys, like little things like that. Deck hockey courts go a long way in neighborhoods. So having those partnerships, but being specific with asks goes a very long way.
So you've got a great audience here. If there's one message that folks here can take away, that you want them to go be ambassadors for Pittsburgh, ambassadors for the city, both those that are here as well as those that are going back to their own communities, what would that be?
That's a good question. I mean, I would say, thank you for being here and listening this morning, but also thank you for what you're doing throughout the region. And, Pittsburgh is the heart of Western PA. So even if you live outside of the city, please come in, talk about Pittsburgh, talk about why you're here. It's important for us to also hear from you as to what are you seeing, why you're thinking of leaving if you are, how do we get you to stay? So what can we do as Pittsburgh to keep you here, to help you grow, to provide space for you? This isn't going to be one individual can't solve this today, but building partnerships and relationships and getting this message out to more people that you're optimistic about Pittsburgh. The mayor's job is more the biggest cheerleader for the city than anything else. So if there's somebody that's debating leaving Pittsburgh, give me 5 minutes with that person and I'll convince you to stay. I mean, that's our job. We have to do that. So again, I would call on this room to do the same thing, is if you have people that are looking to invest and you can get us a list of who they are, we will gladly call and reach out and say, have you thought about Pittsburgh? If you haven't, why not? And if you are here, how can we help you expand? Because that's what Pittsburghers do. And this is, again, just going back to our roots, and that's how we're going to continue to grow this city and provide opportunities for everybody in this room.
Awesome. Well, I hope that you all have enjoyed hearing the mayor's vision. I'm a transplant to Pittsburgh. I moved here from Austin, and I could not be more excited to have you as our mayor and for the agenda and the vision that you are laying out. You mentioned this a couple of times. In many ways, government is going back to the basics, right? And I think that is, I think it's important for the community, and I think you're laying a vision of what Pittsburgh can and should be. So thank you for everything you're doing. You've got a great staff, great team, and personally, looking forward to supporting you in your mission, and hopefully others here. We're excited and motivated by that as well.
No, thank you. Thank you for having me. And I guess